Australian Poetry Hall of Fame on Thundercloud, washing away the garbage, leaving rainbows after rain. Yeah, you know what my mum calls me, stupid idiot. She does sometimes, you stupid idiot. And then she slapped me. That was when I was 19 and I crashed a car. Drunk.
Sounds like she might have been just a little bit right at that moment.
Oh yeah, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. Mum, oh, you better come down here. I crashed your car. Look at you, you stupid idiot. All right, let's begin with the beginning, not the end. And I need to settle this once and for all because there's a bit of a problem at the moment in Australia. Is it a scallop or a cake?
Scallop.
I'm going to settle it once and for all. There's always a third option. Not a scallop nor a cake, not from a shell and not baked. It's just a really big round potato chip that costs twice as much you drip. Scallop or cake, it doesn't matter. Eating too many makes you fatter. Deep fried, and what's that fat chip? It's just a big, flat, round chip. One. And then you pay $1.50 for. Serious. All right, let's acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we broadcast, the Kamilaroi people and the Bandai Nation. Acknowledge the continuing connection to the land of the elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge that sovereignty has never been ceded. And we'll get the show on the road. I'm going to do one from Louisa Lawson in a moment, but I thought I'd get this one out of the way first because, you know, it's sort of serious and get the serious stuff out of the way. All right, David Hawkins, calibrated human consciousnly on a scale from 0 to 1,000. It's a logarithmic scale. And so pride's just down here above like anger, and it's below neutrality and way below like the love level. So pride feels good in relation to things like guilt, shame, desire, fear, etc. This always leaves you open to scorn. So here we go. Pride and scorn go hand in hand, tearing down illusions grand. Humility is not boasting, nor proud, boisterous, gregarious, nor loud. There's one thing that I must warn, pride is always open to scorn. The deadly sin is also a curse. Pride's disrespectful and judges others as being worse. And excessive appreciation of ourselves being better than everyone else. Pride is foolish, I will warn. Pride leaves you open to scorn. Being proud of your city is ignoring the bits that are dirty and shitty. Being proud of yourself judges yourself better than everyone else. National and racial pride leads to war and genocide. Pride is based on anxiety and fear and of judgment every day of the year. Interesting thoughts, eh? When you actually dissect where pride comes from, etc. in the psyche. All right. Now, Louisa Lawson, but there is in the literature, there's an argument for sort of positive pride too, that is sort of, that sort of loving pride of, where you see your kids and you just love them regardless, so that's more unconditional love anyway. Now, Henry Lawson had a mum, yes, he did have a mum, and her name was Louisa Lawson, and last week, this week actually, 3 days ago, I got her full anthology, Louisa Lawson's collected poems, edited by Leonie Rutherford and Megan Ruffley. It was published by the Australian Language and Literature Studies, the Centre for Australian Language and Literature Studies in 1996. And I'm only going to read out one or two that are similar to what I read out last night actually. It's Dolly Dear. And I particularly like this because the way it's been phrased, and she's like misspelt the words so that you get the right phonetics of how a child would be pronouncing this poem. Oh, Dolly dear, don't wiggle so. Sit a moment, do, while I put on your petticoat. and pull your both arms through. We're going to have a wheelie tea with things not made with mud, and you can come and sit with me as long as you are good. Mama has done my hair in curls and tied it up with glue. There's going to be a lot of girls and little good boys too. Oh, Dolly dear, won't it be grand? 2 birthdays just finished too. For Grandma's 4 years old today, and I am 82. And she wrote, there's 16 of these Dolly Dear poems here. And I will read you another one just because they're kind of so cute. And I've done them before, so I can get the little kitty voice, so better more into it. This is Dolly Dear number 2. Oh, Dolly dear, you must be deaf. Wake up and listen do, for I am dreadful out of breath with running up to you. Now, Dolly dear, wait till you hear all I have to say, and when I've told you everything, we'll go and have a play. Our cat stopped kittens, 3, 4, 5, such lovely little things, and one is black and one is white, and 2 of them is twins. And we have called the white one Bess, and the little black one Pom, and Grandma named the grey one Geres, because she's a Tom. Yeah, and what this whole series of 16 poems that she's written here, they're all in like they're 4 verses, 4 lines to a verse, and 4 verses. So yeah, really nice little selection that she's got. But I will read you another one that I haven't found it yet because here we go. This is a cup of cold water, real quick. We thank a friend for the crystal drink that banishes thirst and pain, but seldom pause in our haste or think to praise God for the rain. That's it, eh? Yeah. Just thanking, the water. And, we're in for a bit of rain tomorrow. Thanks for Thundercloud. Boom! Okay, here we go. I've got one more for you before I call on. Skye, would you like to do the honour of coming up first tonight? Oh, wonderful. All right. Well, just last week they were advertising there on Wish. You probably know Wish. It's like an app where you can buy lots of stuff quite cheap and stuff. Anyway, wish.com. This is not an ad for them. They were selling a 220 volt small chicken and dove feather plucking machine, a poultry plucker and a bird decapitator. Yes, so
pheasant plucker, so to speak.
Pretty much. Hey. Well, if you need to pluck a chicken, you need to get a chicken plucker and make your chicken finger licking be a finger sucker. If you need your ducky plucked, you need a ducky plucker when you can't be fucked if you're a lazy fucker. If you need to pluck your cock, you need one of these. You can even de-dreadlock, pluck ducks, cocks and even fleas. If you want to pluck a chook, you need a chook plucker, so you can read a book, and plucking is for a sucker. Want to pluck a dove? Get a small dove plucker. For the poultry we all love, a small dove makes good tucker. Yeah, delicious, right? And because before I invite Skye up, we are in the middle of the Lamb and Potato Festival here in Geres 2023, and this is the one that I wrote for the Lamb and Potato Festival. And I will make note that this Friday here we've got Wayne Donleavy coming. His show starts at 7, doors 7:30. This door's open at 6 for food. That's Friday night. Then Saturday night this space opens up and we've got the big hairy bush dance band and the Lamb and Potato Bush Dance for the end of the Geres Lamb and Potato Festival. So here in Geres we've got lamb and potato. But don't forget the good old tomato. There's skewers, chops, roasted lamb, tomato relish and tomato jam, baked, boiled, mashed chipped potatoes, and every day 70,000 tonnes of tomatoes. In the winter there's snow about in the creeks and dams, there's rainbow trout, Geres is rural but not remote, there's Wagyu, Angus, and there's also this smelly billy goat. Black swan nest when the lagoon is full, crochet and knitting because there's heaps and heaps of wool. Don't forget Burgess's Car Museum, many visit Geres just to come and see him. Wind, thunderclouds, both drought and rain, plus the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. The old convent garden of the lamb and potato, but why doesn't potato rhyme with tomato? It just doesn't work, does it? Right. Skye, come on up.
Woman's business. Time to rest, to slow down, surrender to the earth, grounded, feeling heavy, breathing heavy, feeling the blood beating through your heart, your veins, through the pain. Breathe. It's time. Be whole, be heavy, be kind. Slow down. Nature, nurture. Nurture the nature that you are.
Thank you very much. Nurture the nurture, nurture the nature that you are. So I was listening. I do listen. And I go back and I listen later. When I'm not listening, I actually go back and I watch these again and I listen later. And yeah, there are some fantastically cool poets here. Right, this was written a day ago. Tiny window to my soul. I look inside of you, and all I see is the whole universe in view. A holographic expansion as above, so below. Keep your feet on dancing, moving fast and slow. My heart beats a rhythm, feeling in iration. Oneness has no schism, just a fine vibration. Magnetic field in the air, pineal is the gate. Subtle tuning with long hair, imagine, act, create. Auric field of coloured light, energies all flow, radiant being of delight, let the ego go. The whole thing is, and was, will be, now accepting this. The mind is free. Thank you. Alright, that's something for Saul. Oh, welcome! Saul Cafarella all the way from Armadale. Bravo, bravo! Up the hill.
Right. So, thank you, James, and everyone for being here and out there and everywhere. My dad's birthday today, and he passed away a few years ago, so I've got a couple that are just not actually written directly about it, but you get the gist, you know. This one's called Home. Here we go. Home is not a place, it's a feeling. All the hills and valleys, desert sands and seas, I have known, I have seen. The feeling you impressed on me when I met you. The currency of life each day we spend, all the joy and happiness, sweet caress and love I have known, I have shown. I am so honoured to have spent some time with you. Home was but a notion way beyond. You took me all the way beyond. Misty haze, purple rain, gone, but the feeling of the home remains. This one's called The Show. When the one you love can't make it to the show, when everything about them sets your heart aglow, but still the show must go on. Even though you know there's sadness written into every song. And all the folks who come along rejoice because you help them find their voice and they can sing along. Sing out loud and strong to counteract the silence that overwhelms the abyss that forms betwixt the pieces of their broken hearts. And they know that they are not alone, even though the loneliness is stark. Then they thank you for the show, they walk away, and you know that one day, in the park, an opportunity of possibilities and hopefulness may spark the mystery of love, and it may pull their hearts together. And although each day the show goes on in happiness of sorts, I still miss the one that sets my heart aglow. I wrote this because I wanted you to know. I still miss the one who can't make it to the show.
Alright, this is something written at 3 a.m. today. I want to be in the right position, like I was when I wrote it. So what happens at 3 a.m. when you want to get back to sleep? Instead of going back to sleep, actually, right? Just relax, meditate, sit alone in silence, relax, rejuvenate, rest and sit, contemplate a bit, just relax, listen, observe, anytime you want. It's yourself you can serve. Sit in contemplation, listen to intuition, observe thyself in each situation, in relaxation and meditation. Just sit and feel. Life in every moment, be conscious, relax, be real, deep, breathe in and out. As you're breathing out, let your tension out. And let go of your self-doubt. Breathe in deep. Relax, fall deep asleep. Let your troubles fall through the cracks in the floor. Relax some more. Finally walk through the door. Relax and free your mind and meditate. Relax, it's great. I have to wake up. Yeah, so that was last night, and I think that it needed to be delivered in that particular way, because that was just the way it was sort of written. And this following one was written about 5 hours later, and it was written and I was sitting just like this out the front, us having my brekkie. You can't take your car to heaven, and there aren't any cars in hell. There are no diamonds or gold, and no living bodies as well. Heaven and hell are in your mind, how you think and feel, your attitude to the present time, positive, negative or unreal. You're not your things, you become your actions, not money, home, diamond rings. You're your interactions. At the very end of the line, your legacy will be left behind for the eternity of time, positive memories or bereft. Forget about the afterlife, reincarnated as a cow, be positive, avoid the strife, conscious in the here and now. In the moment all is fine, unless your negative thinking. Speak positive and do not whine, no thinking that is stinking. I tried to hold water, but my hand is now empty. I drank it like I oughta, now the water is in me. But I am a small boat in an ocean of love. I could sink or float or grow wings, fly above. Yeah, just a little bit of Thundercloud philosophy there, just in contemplation this morning. All right, Mr. Albanese, welcome. Everybody, Ashley Albanese, our resident literary expert. Well, he's not a resident, he might decide to live in Geres.
I don't know if there are any literary experts. There are readers and writers and those who'd like to be reading. I should start with my friends, my rulers, because I'm not a person of rule. That's why I have to carry them around. Hypothesis, implication, and test or parameters. So hit or hip, and they are. I have been reading Prosper Mérimée. May I recommend him? He created Carmen. It comes to us in many forms. In many forms. And he wrote many other extraordinary things. The French call him the father of the short story. May I recommend Prosper Mérimée? I sat in the park with the heavy transports going north and south, and I wrote this, but I won't do it first. I'll do one of my experimental things. Ho! 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 Whoa! 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 Oh! Whoa! Ho! 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 Whoa! Whoa, 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 woo, woo, woo. Now, I never know how they're going to go. Woo, is it woo, whoa, oh. I should have written that. I should have performed that for James. Well, I wrote this while I was chatting to a farmer from a spot I know very well. He was telling me the tale about how the lightning nearly got him, but for the heavy rubber wheels of his tractor and the little dells and crevices as you farm east of the dam at Nimbin. He's in the Rotary here, and naturally knowing that spot, it was of great interest to me. Well, I wrote this serendipitously, but it seems to be in the mood of the readings tonight. This is true. There are many Queensland girls and boys who have experienced this. Johnny boy, what you looking out the window there? Two you were. Two. You were when the drought broke, but driving north 1,000 miles, cruising into another dry. You left behind that pitter-patter, left behind that pitter-patter. You missed it, just missed it, to wander through the blazing afternoons of the drought declared. Your Barcaldine schoolroom often hears the call, "Johnny boy, don't pester teacher." "What's rain like, miss?" "Don't pester teacher, put your head in it." The rough boys retort, "What's rain like, miss?" Peter's rude, seen half a dozen floods and draws upon the classroom borderline that ripples as to be a wave, scrawls on Johnny's writing sheet, "He locks for rain," and leaves the second O dropped off somewhere, looking horizonwards. Miss Tip looks down, comforting spellers' spells across the aisle. "Look careful now, boys. 2 O's. That word look. 2 O's. And in the school halls, Johnny's gone north 400 clicks to see his Grandma Jo. He says to Pete, they've still got mud prints on the side veranda door when he comes back. "I'm sorry I missed it." Miss Tip piped up. "The first day of the new term, Johnny, we received some points while you were visiting up north." "I came back, miss, to show Pete what's this raining stuff about." "Forecast says it's coming down again 3 days from now," Miss Tip rejoined. And so they waited for the appointed hour to drop a cloudy load. Yet nothing happened on that third day, except Peter slyly said, "Oh, come round the steps. I've something for you, Johnny boy," and dashed a jug of water on his back. So in his close to 6th year, still waiting for the pitter-patter, Johnny got baptised, a wet shirt hanging on the fence before the last school bell. Yeah, it's a thing that always haunts me, being a Queensland boy, getting to 5 or 6 or girl and never having heard rain on the roof. And now in the 21st century, you sit in school with the whiteboard bringing you a great diorama of a Ganges flood. But there are still kids sitting watching that electronic image of the deluge who haven't experienced rain.
Still, Queensland's a funny place. I spent a long time.
Queensland is a funny place. My dad's ghost sits up there in the balcony and he doesn't say anything, Saul, about Queensland. I thought, as I passed a book I love so much, that I'd read a couple of poems from this wonderful portable Australian authors from the 1890s. Queensland University Press lovingly created 20 or 30 of these books commemorating the Jindy Warrabox, Ralph Boulderwood, plays for stage, radio. Let us not forget the importance of radio as a voice for poetry and theatre in Australian law. Marcus Clark, Henry Lawson, and there are about 20 others. Well, that's enough on that. This is a piece by Will Ogilvie, In Town. Where the smoke clouds scarcely drift and the breezes seem to sleep, where the sunbeams never lift half the gloom of valleys deep. Comrades, must we languish ever, beat our hearts against the bars, while the vine trees kiss the river and the rangers greet the stars? There are stormy tints and tender in the pictures that we pass, but it's all for day, dawn's splendour, and the dew drops in the grass. Though the old life fades behind us, though the new life leaps before, all time's spells are strong to bind us, yearning for our yokes of yore. In the whirl of toil and duty, in the pride of pomp and power, we can find no grander beauty than the Red West's bridal dower. There is music in the rattle of the horse hoofs down the street, but it's all for ringing cattle and the thunder of their feet. Wanton pleasure laughs beside us, where the life streams ebb and flow. Folly's cap and bells deride us, nodding close to want and woe. Lordly pageants round us glisten, at our feet life's joys are cast, but we have no heart to listen, with the bush wind whispering past. Silver nights of love may hold us, till we half forget the stars, but it's all for foam white shoulders and the clink of snaffle bars. I can imagine in time, great herds of cattle and horses have gone up and down the street, or the one out through to Tingha and Inverell. And it's an image of our enslavement to a mighty land. And I will finish with something from Mr. Ian Moody, which wouldn't it appeal to my friends who put on glitter and go raging up Williams Street at the Mardi Gras. But nonetheless, I think we have to have all these voices, because there is such a thing as chorus. Whoa, whoa, enough said. These words come from a South Australian, born at Hawthorn, worked as an editor and lecturer in creative writing, made frequent public lectures, and conducted the Writers' School at the Adelaide Festival. Moody was a member of an intelligent nationalist group, the Australia First movement. He believed that our land had been conquered by the English, conquered by the Americans, could have been conquered by the Japanese, but our land was still our land in a mysterious way, only to be experienced in itself and beyond any simple framework that these forces could flow into. He was associated with the Jindi Warrabak movement. Much of his poetry reflects his passion for conservation, his awareness of Aborigines, and his high regard for pioneering days and the sufferings. Give me a harsh land to wring music from, brown hills and dust with dead grass, straw to my bricks. Give me words that are cutting harsh as wattled bird notes in dusty gums crying at noon. Give me a harsh land, a land that swings like heart and blood from heat to mist. Give me the hand that, like my heart, scorches its flowers at spring, then floods upon its summer ardour. Give me a land where rain is rain, that will beat the heads low, where wind howls at windows and patters dust on tin roofs while it hides the summer sun in a mud-red shirt. Give my words sun and rain, desert and heat and mist, spring flowers and dead grass, blue sea and dusty sky, songbirds and harsh cries, strength and austerity that this land has. I suppose that's why we speak to the bush and from the bush, hopefully. There's lots of bush, so there's lots of speaking left.
Advice. A hoodie makes a great vomit catcher, especially if someone else is wearing it. And you can get, this is the Geres lamb shirt for the Lamb and Potato 2023. I've made these up, these are available on my Thesaurus Poetry Hall of Fame and on the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame.com.au store page. And then this one is the hoodie one as well. So there's a hoodie one, and then there's a whole bunch of other ones there, and they're all different prices, so I'm not even going to attempt to remember them. Now, I'm going to ask, in a moment we've got, I've got Gabriel coming up, then it'll be Steve, and we might even have a special visit from the High Plains Nobbit. after there. And finally, sometime today, we've got to get a visit, a special poetic visit from someone who doesn't say a lot. You probably haven't noticed her around. No, it's not Risty. It's not Philip over there. No, it's Melissa up there, the head in the net. And she'll be down, and I'll get her down in a moment later on in the night, but she's got something very special she wants to tell you that she wrote last night. I might even need you to film me going up there to rescue her like Romeo, okay? All you need to do is just pick up the whole tripod and not even, and just sort of, you know, and then put the tripod back down before me. That'd be great. But in the meantime, I've got this really, just got a lot of that. I got this great hat, it's on top, in fact it's a top hat. And me being a Warren, well, what would you think I would have in my hat?
A rabbit.
Well, are you ready? There's nothing in there. Are you ready? Still nothing, right? But there is flowers up my bum. All right, see you later. In the Warren, where else would they be? Not me hat. I think they took that up there to eat. All right, well, speaking of eating stuff, she was a cow. In the here and now, ate a lot of grass, let it pass out grass. Every day she ruminated as she was so fated. She walked to the shed, milked and fed, but her word went boom. One day when she found and ate a golden mushroom, became a psychedelic cow, didn't understand how life became so great. She began to create cow poetry and art, continued to fart and belch methane, but inside her brain were so many thoughts like, why don't cows play ball sports? The psychedelic cow had horns on her brow, loved to surf, farmed her own turf, enslaved the farmer for a Hindu cow. That's karma. Made him work in the field to increase the turf yield and also pull the plough. The psychedelic Hindu turf farmer cow. An interesting cow sat on a tree bough thinking, I'm woke. Just one more toke of this DMT. Mrrr. Experienced oneness and ecstasy and the source of creation, all as mind and vibration, as above, so below. On all cows, farmers and farms, the winds blow. She was a cow, fell in love with a sow. Their love crossed species. They have different feces, eat different food. They can't have a brood, but they're great friends. Cow and pig, lesbians, they both love to fart, plus eat mushrooms and create art. Gabriel Donleavy.
When did you write that?
5 days ago.
Those silly cows.
First, something a bit heavy in 2 parts, and then lots of little things light. The heavy ones are what happened when I looked through what I still got on the computer, and quite recently I wrote one about Poland, which I do again here, when I went to Poland earlier this year. And about 20, 30 years ago, I wrote something that was almost the complete opposite, and I'm going to read that. I wonder how many of us look back on what we were like 20, 30 years ago, in my case when I was middle-aged, and think, that is a different person I hardly recognise. Here we go. Labour pains. Some religions say life is a school for death. Its hellish lessons, some obscure instruction by teachers as blind as they are invisible, to pupils as deaf as we are mute. Yet, some stunted hunchbacks set themselves up as tutors, like pardoners and summoners of old, selling dogs' bones for the price of saints' relics. These gurus claim personal insight into the indecipherable texts of Karma Maya, but by their behaviour disprove the power and reality of this newest but oldest excuse for obvious and universal injustice plaguing this unshared planet, as millions slowly die too young, too many, and billions live in a nightmare, screaming from which nightmares themselves are sweet relief. Even charlatan gurus shriek from uttering that term of bitter mockery, joy, as having much to do with life. Every day wetter and filthier and more pointless than Passchendaele or Ypres, colder and more humiliating than the retreat from Moscow, and more anonymous than the dead in the Rwandan and Balkan genocides. All wars are fought in daily life, and all winners lose. How can we honestly believe some higher self that is somehow us chose freely to enter this pitiless torture? I'll cheer you up.
Oh, well, there is that aspect.
Yeah. This is the recent one. In the last 200 years, we have multiplied our fears. Each advance in our technology failed to improve our psychology. Though we stepped up our velocity, we made new hells with each atrocity. On paper enhancing human rights, in practice worsening human plights. How would any fair onlooker sense progress in Earth's pressure cooker? Yes, we took man to the moon. Yes, we will return there soon. Yes, the Nazis were defeated. Yes, bacterial foes retreated. Yes, women from oppression rose. Yes, support for greenness grows. But tell me this, Chief Clappy Chappy, why are so many so unhappy? The situation is so sad. Humanity seems to be so bad. Easy to believe the worst of every new encounter. Cursed our eyes that see thick black smoke from smiling mouths of ruling folk. We have built up new protection to stop malevolent detection. We live through lockdowns behind screens which shield us from mere threats of screams and freeze our hearts at scenes of slaughter, down-drain babies with bath water. Pray, from this dystopian pain, can we re-aspire to kindness plain? Can we discern among the rubble people who transcend their trouble? Could we in our daily living find pleasure in justly giving? Could we, like the Polish nation, through compassion draw salvation? Neighbours, readers, make us see authentic good in you and me. So that's the reason. One of the difficult things when writing poetry, much more than writing anything else, except of course lessons for students, is how to get anybody interested, how to grab them by the first line. In my library at home, I found this book, and it's first lines quotes. Of course, they're all from prose, and some quite famous ones. But I thought, if we were to take the ones that really appeal to us and use that as a trigger for a poem, we might get something quite interesting. But I haven't actually done that yet. What I'm going to do tonight is just give you a selection of first lines. This one is from James Joyce, beginning the portrait of the artist of the young man. Once upon a time, and a very good time it was. Second one, Tolstoy, Anna Karenina. All happy families resemble one another. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way.
Must be the most quoted line.
Salinger, Catcher in the Rye. If you really want to hear about it, the first thing you'll probably want to know is where I was born, and what my lousy childhood was like, and how my parents were occupied, and all before they had me, and all that David Copperfield kind of crap. But I don't feel like going into it. That's really good. Pretty long, isn't it? Just a sentence. But
Yeah. The David Copperfield crap.
Yeah. Evelyn Waugh. Sent down for indecent behaviour, eh? Said Paul Pennyfeather's guardian. First line of the novels. James Thurber. I suppose the high water mark of my youth in Columbus, Ohio, was the night the bed fell on my father.
That's famous.
These are the first novels. 18th century lady writer called Harriet Wilson, memoirs of herself and others, begins like this. I shall not say why and how I became at the age of 15 the mistress of the Earl of Craven. Eric Thompson of the Magic Roundabout. Dougal was in bed thinking about not being in bed. Now that is
I do that every morning.
Yeah. James Stevens, Think All the Triangle, his first line. Nothing is true forever. Now what's good about that is you immediately think, I disagree with that. But you do think something. Next one, Aldous Huxley. Along this particular stretch of line, no express had ever passed.
Oh,
Resonance.
oh that's odd.
Graham Greene. The cabin passenger wrote in his diary a parody of Descartes. I feel discomfort, therefore I am alive. Very true.
Very true, Graham Greene.
Rose McCall. Take my camel, dear, said Aunt Dot as she climbed down from this animal on her return from High Mass. Good juxtaposition of stuff. Joseph Heller, Catch-22. It was love at first sight. The first time Yossarian saw the chaplain, he fell madly in love with him. Good twist. William Boyd and Ice Cream Moore. What do you think would happen, Colonel Theodore Roosevelt asked his son Kermit, if I shot an elephant in the balls? That's the first one. Not many more. No. The next one is David Knowles, who wrote the Reginald Perrin series. This is the first line. When Reginald Iolanthe Perrin set out for work on the Thursday morning, he had no intention of calling his mother-in-law a hippopotamus. Three more. William Plummer, the autobiography. It has been common in recent years for people to speak of searching for their own identity. That's more sarcastic than you might think.
Oh, that's hilarious.
You can't do a thing like this without Kafka. And this is from the trial. Someone must have been telling lies about Joseph K, for without having done anything wrong, he was arrested one fine morning. Straight into it. And lastly, Daniel Defoe. Short and sweet. I have been here before, I said. There we are. Make a challenge. Oh, just a minute. I'm thinking sometime in the moderately near future of putting together a kind of stand-up, because one of the things I do when I'm vegging out is get comedy channels up. And I've noticed that whether it's Australia in Melbourne or the Brits in the Apollo, modern comedy by Generation Z of the millennials seems to be exclusively the worship of Billy Connolly and your life story or something that happened to you last week, and you get angry about something unbelievably pointless. And I notice there's absolutely nobody at my age, and they're not all dead, most of them are, like the Monty Python gang, half of them are alive. There is a niche here, so I'm going to experiment with that. I won't necessarily do it in rhyme though, let's not be silly.
Well, as far as comedians go, I'm currently crushing on Jimmy Carr because he's just so great.
Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah. And yeah, Dave Chappelle. Carl Barron, yeah.
What's David Carr do? I haven't heard of him. What's he do?
Jimmy Carr.
Jimmy Carr. Oh, he's English. He's an English comedian. He's just very good.
He made his name by being able to respond to any insult, however dire from the audience.
I get it.
Yeah, you're real quick, yeah.
And he was done for tax evasion 10 years ago.
All right, there's many things in this world I don't know. Like, why is fast only fast when it's relative to slow? Why does cat start with C and kit start with K in the cold Siberian winter? What kind of games do children play? When you get engaged, why do women get a diamond ring? Why are so many people publicly afraid to dance and sing? Why did the giants go extinct? How does a yowie hide? Why are so many people scared of the sun and never go outside? I really have no idea how magicians do their tricks, nor why many do not see the control system of the matrix. There's a lot I do not know, like how to stone a crow. But I know my words can flow on undercurrent of toe, undercurrent undertow. I know my words can change the world when they're read and heard, the power of hope and transformation of the written spoken word. I know a fact is actual, and hearsay programming forms belief, and discerning a rational belief from fact saves a lot of grief. I know there is a mind, there's rhythm, movement and vibration, and it's a boundless field of energy full of holographic information. There are countries and governments, but on earth we're all one. I know a positive mental attitude brings success and makes life fun. I know the things I know, I also question what I know. I know what I don't know, I don't know what I don't know. And I'll just stop it there. And has anyone seen the High Plains Nobbit around?
No, I haven't seen him. No, he's not been around.
Oh. Well, I don't know. What about Paul Wood? Is he around?
Yeah.
He's drinking.
No. He's thinking at the moment.
You want to get him up there?
Yep. Come on down, Paul Woods. The price is right. I can even do the hand movement. Something like that. Here he is.
Alright. Alright, and this fella's your mother's favourite. Leave an apple pie on your back windowsill. It'll be in your backyard and over your back fence. No appointment necessary. Leave your coolers in. Leave your felt slippers on. Hoist your moist ladies. Now this fella knows you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, but you can make a nice butterfly hand-pup reflection on the back lounge room wall with it. Now give this fella a great big hand now, come on.
That's all because I've got partial amnesia brought on by alcohol. I can't remember what it's up. I just forgot again. And so to start off with, I'm going to say testing, 1, 2, testing, 1, 2. All right. Now it's good to see Larry here, see all the gang here, the usual faces. There's some pretty average ones I'm not going to say here. Now, because I normally give an enlightening, a levitating thought about music, opera, movies, culture, history, all those sort of things that bores everyone to sleep. So I thought I might just have a quick conversation on about coal-fired power stations. Yeah. Not only did I design them and build them, but I was also a consultant on nuclear power. For those people that don't know me, yes, I'm also an expert there. Now, would you like to hear just quickly on the genesis and creation of energy through coal? Would you like to know how it happens? Anyone interested?
Oh, yes.
Anyone interested? Huh? Yeah?
You got the cat.
Oh, Skye, would you like to know? It's interesting. Okay. Australia has the purest and greatest deposits of anthracite coal in the world. Anthracite coal is what they call black coal. It's got the highest calorific value of any coal in the world. Most coal deposits in the world are brown, low, high ash, high silica, and low calorific value. Our coal is the finest coal in the world. That's what makes this country valuable to a lot of, shall we say, suspicious people overseas. Our coal deposits. Australia had, at one time, the lowest energy costs on the planet by far. By far. In other words, the view of the governments of the time, which had an idea of a commonwealth, the ideal of commonwealth in politics, was that the country would be built by creating low-cost power so that people could have a good life and manufacture could have low cost for export. We're a long way from the world. So what happened in the 50s and then in the 60s and 70s was the creation of coal-fired power stations on the coal seams. The original ones were away from coal. They were close to the cities, they were close to the consumption areas because of the high cost of transmission. So they built the power stations close to the demand. And of course, they were shut down. Even though they were quite modern and very efficient, they were shut down because they were right in the city. So they realised with a lot of foresight to build power stations upon the coal, where the transportation of the coal was from open cut mining straight to the power station on conveyor belts. They designed those conveyor belts. The coal would reach the power station and then be pulverised into a dust as fine as talcum powder. It was then injected into what was called the boilers, and you listening, John? You with me? You still with me? And this amazing fuel was injected into the boilers. The boilers were multi-stage,
tube nest boilers, and heat was created at 1,050 degrees centigrade, and superheated steam was created at 3,000 psi. These are huge numbers. Huge numbers. The steam was then delivered to what was called turbines, 3-stage turbines, with alternators attached to the end, and the power is created straight to the grid. Any questions? Well, yes, that's what boiled your kettle, and your mum's kettle too, and that's what made this a great place. So just, I just mentioned that for what it's worth.
It's the cheapest fossil fuel. It's easy to store.
We looked at creating atomic power stations in this country too. I did a lot of work on it. It was decided that coal was a better way to go. I've got a lot of old friends who hate coal. I hate Mr. Coal, I hate King Coal. They just hate me. I just thought that'd be interesting, instead of talking about the opera, instead of talking about the great leaders, instead of talking about the baritones, the great tenors, instead of talking about great arias from the past. So that's about it. I'm in a hurry tonight, so I've got work to do. Good to see Gabriel here. And Gabriel, I just want to ask you, we talked the other day, and would you mind telling me after sometime, please tell me, where's a safe haven for cash assets of middle class people? All right, now tonight I'm going to, I was going to sing two songs. Just to fill the shop a little bit, but I've sort of semi-forgotten one. So I'll have a crack. I came up earlier. I was called up as, infamously, I've been sort of called the High Plains Nobbit because I can't write poetry and the poems I write sound like they've been written by a knob. So that's how I'm known. I've been at it. Okay. What was the song I sent before, James? I've forgotten it again. What was it? What was it? Jesus, I forgot. Hank.
Do one about coal, there's lots of them.
About what?
About coal, like working in a coal mine.
I've been working in a coal mine, going downtown, going in a coal mine. Ooh,
Nat King Cole.
Hey?
Yeah.
Nat King Cole.
Seconded.
Oh, that's a pretty sad bit, isn't it? Nat smoked himself to death. He was besides being a great, Nat didn't rate himself as a good singer. He was a marvellous piano player. But of course he was very popular. He had a very smooth, crooning voice. And he had a marvellous hit called Nature Boy. I'd like to sing it for you, but I won't because I'm not Nat King Cole. But if someone will just liquor me up properly, and on a later date I'll do it. I'll sing Nature Boy by Nat King Cole. So James, I'll just do Memories of Mother and Dad. And that might warm up my memory for what I sang earlier in the day. James, get some memory jibs. Besides all the other stuff you take, get something for your memory, will you? Some medicine, for God's sake. Okay, this one's called... Now, I look pretty rough tonight. I'm normally very debonair. I normally look great, you know, look nice on stage. I look pretty rough from where you are, but it's worse from here, I can tell you. This one's called Memories of Mother and Dad. Can somebody give me the first word, please?
Mommy.
Thank you. Mother left this world of sorrow. Her home was silent and so sad. Dad took sick and had to leave us. I had no home, no mother, no dad. There's a little lonesome graveyard. On these tombstones it did say, on mother's gone but not forgotten, on dad's we'll meet again someday. I often go down to the graveyard where we laid them down to rest. I can almost hear them whisper, trust in God, he'll do the rest. There's a little lonesome graveyard, on his tombstones it did say, on mother's gone but not forgotten, on dad's we'll meet again someday. I often go down to the graveyard, where we laid them down to rest. I can almost hear them whisper, trust in God, he'll do the rest. There's a little lonesome graveyard, on his tombstones it did say, on mother's gone but not forgotten, on dad's we'll meet again someday. All right. I think that's stay there, James. You got springs in your feet, James. You should bounce out and take this microphone away. I think that was called. I think that one was called Log Train. Was anybody here? Well, James can't tell us. He's got temporary Alzheimer's, so he wouldn't remember. But I think it was called Log Train. Yeah. Okay. I'll do it. Anyone want to hear Log Train? Yeah. Yes? Is that it? Yeah, that's a yes. Okay. I'll take that. Alright. Would a maestro please start me? If you listen, a song I will sing about my daddy who ran a log train way down in the Southland in old Alabama. We lived in a place they called Chipman Town. Late in the evening when the sun was low, way out on the hills you would hear the train blow. Folks would come round and Mama would sing, get the supper on the table, here comes the log train. Every morning at the break of day, he'd grab his lunch bucket and be on his way. Winter or summer, sunshine or rain, every morning he'd move that old log train. Sweating and a-cursing all day long, shouting, get out there, oxen, keep moving along. Load her up, boys, 'cause it looks like rain. I gotta keep moving this old log train. This story happened a long time ago. The log train is silent, God called that to go. But when I get to heaven, to always remain, I'll listen for the whistle of the old log train.
This is something I did 2019. Thank you very much, by the way, Paul. This is something I did 2019 at the Lismore Poetry Cup called The Flugel of Bliglash. In the flugel of Bliglash, the Greelop crashed, walking sliffishly, the clapping the drush, gravely ended them, huffingly zock. Holla, hast roidini, twad chicka's pluck. Twad chicka can sport, the pluck, have a Christus, a brustumd clap was thrust topping fistus. But Greelop noticed, und clapping the pluck, have a the broidery, sliffishly broidery hawk. Christus put the cacophone with cack and quack, whilst Greelop got, dog near und shut the cacophone up. Sleefishly walked them shiffingly hastock, doc nifed them ronivni, lag far till thwap. Christus bunk back and twatchika replocket grealopka reclemency instaport jocket avex imugly, buglatcha slap. Gifak fakrin good glad blackers up. Flistus has caught the clecting and hushting, summon said hollak and grealopka sliffishly hushting. Tall-ended sliffishly, chiffingly hastock, Doc Nearfred, nem ronively, lagfar till thwap, clock was ended from grabling, strobingly through. There's embark overgone, oh, briskly through. In the flue of the biglash, gleal up and crushed. Walkling sliffishly, as a clapping the rush, grably ended him, huffing his up, hollow cast, broidered in, twatchika's walk. Yeah, okay. So yeah, wherever that took you, who knows? And that was pretty much inspired a bit by Lewis Carroll's The Jabberwocky, but yeah, written there, sitting in the middle of Nimbin, and just so, you know, lots of mixed up words, bits of words, backwards words, like where it goes, Nemronivli, Lake Fartel Thwok, Nemronivli is like part of environment, spelt backwards without the T, Nemronivli. Lagfar is sort of like part of village pharmacy. Yeah, anyway, then there's, yeah, whatever. That was just to make up take some words that look like nouns, use the kind of structure of language and words that have sort of like a verb sound and adjectives, etc., to create sort of a storyline that takes you into wherever you go. It'd be great if you close your eyes too. So. And now we've got the other colourful man of the moment. Here he is, Steve Wordsmith. Come on up. Is this not down? It's here. Over. You're welcome.
Wow, it's always good to be here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame, on a Wednesday night for open mic. If you listen, a tale I will tell of a journey val heaven and a travail val hell. Come hearken, my good folk. Pray hear my attitude to the journey through the cosmos, to heaven alone. Come lay down your burden, come whimsic with me, with fair fawn and child folk. Adventure all we, thou come wise in wonder, to respond to you in kind. Afore life's almighty journey, wander and winds. Here stands for you the wordsmith, a wisp, future, past, and flashing your topsoils, I bind to the mast. When you open up your eyes to realise and realise and realise and realise, there's plenty of real lies in this world. See, I haven't been around the world, but I've been around the block. I don't know it all, but I know a bloody lot. I don't have a house or a place of abode. I spend most of my time on the side of the road. Well, that has got to change, because I live under that stage in the Australian Hall of Fame. And when I'm under thunder, there's a lot of noise in the Thundercloud situation. And I'm a flash of light that always comes when there's thunder around. Because he says he leaves rainbows when thunder's around. And I class myself as a little bit of a rainbow. You know that I'm eccentric, and you know that I'm quite weird. You know that I wear rainbow and I have a long white beard. But if you judge the book by the cover and don't listen to my words, you'll miss the Spirit's message by thinking I'm absurd. We have a lot of little word plays and things to do in the poetic side of things. All people alive have some talent. From where it comes, it's not known. Some sing and dance or act out romance. It's a part of your life, like a poem. When telling a joke is your forte, or telling the humour of life, or painting a beautiful landscape, or serenading the friends in your life. Yes, talent's a part of our makeup becomes natural in the things that we do, not always in the things expected, not always in the things that we choose. I've had many good opportunities to do different things in life, and as we write stories in the poetry that we read and we write, we get to maybe set a little bit of a tale for the future, or maybe a little bit of a tale for the past, or whatever it happens. I met him first near Warren, working on a starved-out farm. He was skeletor and sallow, lean of shank and long of arm. Wide lips and flared-out nostrils that bespoke his native blood. Battler, scratching hard existence in this land of drought and flood. But he won a tight survival chasing rabbits day and night. He had no gun nor ammunition. Used to knock them out in flight with a waddy for a weapon, junk or rock. Was just the same. And he'd grab that groggy bunny and he'd say that was deadly. Seldom offered his target, gave those spielers a little rest, and then knock 'em, sock 'em out. He's in the showground out west. The day that I enlisted, he was standing next to me, and heard him tell the captain that his name was Darky Lee. Or often quiet and moody, lonely in the crowd, no doubt, or perhaps a dip of colour made him feel the odd man out. But there was a willing soldier and a dinkum cobber too, like the night the MP's caught us at that swai game in the loo. Yeah, he nailed that provost sergeant cold as any side of meat, with a well-aimed whiskey bottle at the range of 20 feet. Mighty quick we were escaping, and I heard our mate exclaim, as we scarpered through the alleys, fellas, that was deadly aim. Then our mob embarked for service to a land across the sea, where the final call awaited for that bloke called Darky Lee. This was at the Flanders dust-up, the place called Blardner's Court. We copped a bad position. Yeah, men aren't cut off without support. And that enemy machine gun keeping up a steady fire, safe and sound in their encampment beyond barricade and wire. Flat we lay like bloody lizards on that piece of shell-raked plain. And that enemy machine gun pelted lead like summer rain. Well, our choice was die like heroes or the white surrender flag, when an officer decided it was time to sky the rag. Take your choice, a German prison or a group of unmarked mounds. When this bloke goes racing past me like a hare before the hounds strike me blue, but it was Darky, like an emu crouching low. In his right hand was a grenade swinging ready for the throw. No cover to protect him, dashing, daring as you please, where those Mitchell houses chattered and the bullets hummed like bees, and fair into that enemy gun pit, he dispatched his first grenade. Screams were heard from brave men dying as that scarlet blossom burst. Then he sent him up another just as quickly as the first. German gunner or a rabbit, it was all the same to our champion Bundy Chucker. He maintained his deadly aim. Then a dying spurt of gunfire rang the bell on Darky Lee. By the time the medics got there, he was very nearly gone. Though his belly parts were punctured, his heart was hanging on. And in final grief, we listened to the gasp that shook his frame. And the final words he uttered. Fellas, that was deadly. Just another unsung hero, another unsung. One of many number when the final curtain rung. Native son with small ambition, or our heart's decree. A soldier in the true tradition. Rest not troubled, Darky Lee. Yeah, it's, I often tell that story. It's an interesting one. It brings up the thought that, you know, we have these people that we have found very hard to accept over the years, but they were like dying for us in the past, and I like to bring that into the play, you know. I had an experience not too many years ago, or probably 20 years ago now, it is. And I spent 10 years in Tenterfield as the Tenterfield cobbler. It's an interesting place. I love Tenterfield. It's a great little town. That's the town of Federation, where Henry Parkes made his speech of Federation through there. And I happened to be the cobbler at the time, and we'd been asked to do this storytelling. Me and Brian Meldrum decided to have this storytelling competition called the Oracles of the Bush. And yeah, we wrote different things and such. You know, I got to lead that Federation parade in 2001, and you know, the reason old Henry came to Tenterfield has always been a mystery. He came to visit the cobbler. The likeness to him was profound. Old Henry was a drinking man with a vision of bringing the states together. But when it came time for him to make his speech, old Henry was under the weather. Well, they showered him and hosed him down, but things were not so good. So they smartened up the cobbler, and in for Henry he stood. This is a tale that's known by few, so don't spread it around, but don't leave the birthplace of this land unless you've met this cobbler of this town, see. Anyway, I was asked to write this oracle, and, you know, I wrote an oracle, and they, you know. See, I was brought up in the country in a place called Wedderburn, on the side of the Georges River, with the stags and the elks and the ferns. There wasn't many luxuries. No, things weren't very plush, but we had this long drop dunny called the Orifice of the Bush. There's one thing that I know for sure, and I spent a lot of time just doodling in the dirt there. And I even wrote some rhyme. A place to fantasise and figure out, but everything was true. A hideout from the washing up, like young lads often do. I'd always lift the lid up to avoid a bit of fright, to eradicate the chances of the dreaded redback bite. Like mum's old chook, I'd settle in with me pants around me knees to the sound of the neighbour's rampant bull and fruit bats in the trees. Like a medieval king, I'd sit upon his gilded throne, my favourite place, I must admit, in our lovely country home. Yes, I'm a connoisseur of dummies, but this it is a fact. A place to try, a place to check before I hang my hat. I remember when I left the bush in a council house in town, there was an outhouse out the back here, a place to settle down. It wasn't quiet as our country home, but it had all the mods and cons. Running water, electric light, and an oven to cook scones. I'd only been there a week, I think, when I awoke with an awful fright. There was a shadow past the window in the middle of the night. I'd heard about these prowlers and their low-down thieving tricks, but they'd taken on the wrong bloke this time, this lad from out the sticks. Well, I hit the floor running. There wasn't time to put on clothes. I'll get that flaming larrikin and I'll probably break his nose. Through the front door quietly, the blood was pumping fast. I'd stop him at the gate, I thought, as the bare feet hit the grass. He was running up the footpath with his booty on his back. I'd played rugby in my school days and I'd stop him in his track. Well, I hit him round the ankles and he had nowhere to go. Yeah, I dropped him like a dunny lid and all he said was, "No!" The smell was something awful. I'd never live it down. I'd nailed the poor old dunny man and I'd dropped him on the ground. There was excretion all across the grass and right across the road. The lid had left the dunny can and he dropped the flaming load. Well, throughout my years of wandering, I think I've tried the lot. There's the environmental sound ones, there's flush lavatories and pots, there's collectors of pubs, of pins, of bottle stamps and plants, but I'm the international. No, universal secretary of the place you drop your pants. I've tested loos across this land and I've tried the loos abroad. There's the ones you pull the chain on, there's authentic ones and there's frauds, but there's nothing in comparison when you have to strain and push as a good old Aussie dunny and the orifice of the bush. Really good to be here. Have a great life. May the good Lord bless you until we see you again. Bye.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Steve Wordsmith. Right, what have we got? A bit of poetry news. In February, there's the Banjo Patterson Poetry Festival down in Orange. That's from around about the 17th through to the 24th of 5th, 6th, 7th of February or something. And during that, the 23rd and 24th, there's the Australian Bush Poetry Championship down there, and they're looking for entries at the moment. There's also the Oracles of the Bush up there in Tenterfield in March, and they're also looking for entries in the Looming Legend. So, and that's a performance competition. You have to do an original, like you have to do a traditional bush poem, a modern bush poem, an original funny, an original serious. And that's so that's coming up. Other things. There's the Hypnotist show on Friday night, $30. We've got the Saturday night, the Big Hairy Bush Dance Band. They're going to be here, and we'll have the bush dance in here every day until Sunday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at 2 o'clock. We've got the Thundercloud's Australian Poetry Show here as well. And Saturday morning, the Lamb and Potato, we've got the market in here, but also this week we've got the Machinery and Car Show on Saturday morning out in the street out there. Now, it's always, the floor's always open to any new visitors who want to do anything if they so feel inclined, and you can always go, no, thank you, we're here to watch. And that's, anyone else? Yeah? Oh, welcome. Whoa, fantastic. What's your name? Troy. Troy,
yes. Everybody here, anybody own a dog? Yeah. Yeah, one? But everyone owns a dog. Yeah. Well, here's one I wrote about dogs. It's called A Dog's Life. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of Lassie, and Benji, and Rin Tin Tin, and a dozen more you could add to the score, but to leave this one out is a sin. For this wonderful dog that was named Cyril, and a smarter mug you couldn't find. For while you were asleep, he'd fetch up the sheep, he'd bring them all in from behind. Then he'd dip them, and drench them, and dab them, and he'd mark them if they'd not been done. Then he'd feast on the tails, and the bits from the males, that was all part of the fun. But he'd always be back home for dinner, taking great pride in spoiling me. But he'd have a quick look through his cookery book, and he'd cook something special for tea. And after he'd washed all the dishes and dried them, and put them away, he'd get stuck straight into the bookwork, and he'd tell me what I'd earned that day. But the stress of his job started showing us he took to drinking quite bad. And the thought of my dog getting hooked on the grog left me feeling quite guilty and sad. So I had a quiet word to old Cyril, and I showed him the fault in his ways, and I'm hoping that he'll soon recover, because he's starting next week at AA's. The last one that I wrote. Anyone from down around Walkaway? Oh, I was out the bush down Walkaway, just poking around a bit, when this bloke came out of nowhere and asked to share my spot to sit. Well, I said, no worries, mate, pull up a stump and have some tea. He said, you light the fire, son, leave the rest to me. Then he gathered up his old felt hat and he folded back the band, and a 12-foot length of fishing line fell out into his hand. And the feathers on that old bush hat, I thought were there for looks, but nestled down inside them were 2 stainless steel hooks. So he gathered all his fishing gear and headed for the creek, while I got all the firewood and went to take a leak. Well, when I got back to camp, my old bushmate had beat me back, and he laid 2 big fat rainbow trout upon a hessian sack. And he cleaned them up and gutted them with his old pocket knife, and while the feed was cooking, told me stories of his life. And he told me how an old bush hat is all you really need. It stops the sun from cooking you and provides you with feeds. So I gave the old bloke $40 to part with this old hat, and smiling to myself, I thought, it must be worth twice that. Well, the old bloke took my money and gave me a great big smile. And then he told me something I'll remember for a while. It's not what's on your head, but what's inside that matters, mate. And you just gave me $40 for a hat that cost me $8. So we laughed about it for a while, and we told a few more stories about life out in the bush, its downfalls and its glories. And in the morning when I woke, the old bush bloke had gone, but the memory of my old bush mate will always linger on. But there's one thing I learnt that night, I'll keep until I'm dead. That wealth comes not by assets, but what's inside your head. I haven't committed this one to memories. This one's called Life on the Land. Bit of a tearjerker. This was the last one I wrote. Those who live upon the land might sympathise and understand the story I'm about to tell about a farmer's living hell. His property was handed down. 3 generations worked the ground. His cattle bloodlines went back years, and the pride he felt near brought on tears. But then, cattle prices fell to half their worth. He wouldn't sell. He'd keep them fed and sell in spring when the prices would be up again. But springtime didn't bring the rain, and all his savings went on grain. And now, with silos running low, the local creek had ceased to flow. Perhaps if he just sold a few, the cash he made might see him through. He'd only keep the younger stock, and then sell the rest. But then, a shock. The truck that took his stock away brought them all back the following day. The auctioneer said, "Sorry, Sid, your cattle never raised a bid. And now, with no feed in the shed, however would he keep them fed?" Well, now months have gone, and still no rain. The dams are dry, the creek is drained. The farmer sits inside his shed. His dry, cracked hands support his head. The tears he sheds are not a pride. His family bloodlines now have died. Some perished waiting for the rain. The rest he shot to end their pain. And as the tears roll down his face, he prays that there's a better place. He reaches for his bullet box. One bullet left. He loads, he cocks. But then a soft voice fills the air, and gentle fingers stroke his hair. "I thought that we were partners, mate. If you leave now, he'll fix the gate. TV says rain's on its way. If you go now, he'll make the hay." The voice came from his lovely wife. She wouldn't let him take his life. "Let's go inside. I'll close the shed. It's time we put the kids to bed." And as they made their way back home, where all the gardens once had grown, they heard a sound once so aloof, the sound of raindrops on the roof.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Fantastic. It's always wonderful to have a new poet up here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. Hey, everyone, give him another round of applause. All right, is there anyone else? What?
I'll score.
Melissa.
Oh,
yes, Melissa. Melissa wants to do one. I'll have to get her. All right, off I go. Melissa. Hello, darling. How you going? Excited? Yeah. Love you. There you go. Don't break your head, darling.
Oh.
Okay, now there's a bit of backstory between me and Melissa. Now, not because I happened to be with a nutcase called Melissa once, but anyway, I used to work at TAFE, in Logan TAFE, and there was a hairdressing studio there that I was teaching, and I managed to rescue 5 of these, and I used to sit around my house and turn up in strange places and scare the shit out of people, like when they open the toilet, or the microwave, or just walking past anywhere. Anyway, and slowly they all disappeared. And I think it was my second wife. And then one day I was there picking my son up from childcare. Oh, actually I was paying rent because the childcare was diagonally opposite. and I see her pull up in her car, and she got out, and she put Melissa in the bin. So twice she's been rescued from the bin. And now she's been with me for a good 10 years. This is nearly as long as I was married to my first wife. But she's faithful. She's a good head. Yeah, she says very little, but she does write poetry, and well, not really until last night. So as I've happened to inspire a few poets around, because here we are, the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame, Melissa has one for you. All right, I'll have to read it for her, but I'll do my best to do a Melissa voice if she could actually speak, but she just does telepathy anyway. I am just a head, not animate, nor am I dead. I don't eat and don't get fat. I'm a head, so I can wear a hat, but I'm rarely found down touching the ground. I'm hanging in a net. It's my life, and I accept my life has been great. Watching James Arthur Warren create, I love watching him. Twice he rescued me from a bin. So now we travel together, the plastic head and Jim forever. Some people think he's weird. I love his twisted beard. He says what he thinks, makes some people see red and also pink. Sometimes he's blunt and loud. That's when he's Thundercloud. His heart, though, is as big as Farlow, makes a poetic thunderclap. I live vicariously through him. I'm the #1 groupie of Jim, but please don't call him that. He doesn't like it. He hasn't got a cat, so I hang in a net. Most of the time he forgets that I even exist, but I would never ever insist on unnecessarily taking his time. Thunderclouds are Earth's poetry. Experiencing them is divine. Thank you very much. Thank you, Melissa. Oh, that's very lovely words from you, Melissa. Gee, that was lovely. And oh, look, hey, I've been sorry, you're not dropped. I just picked up Melissa again. Well, I like you. I've got a head tonight. Next Wednesday, I've been invited to a dinner at the Bowler, and Wednesday's poetry night. And the dinner is because I've been nominated for an Australia Day Award. So I was going to ask the poets, what are we going to do? Should we move it to Tuesday and record it on Tuesday? Or would Steve like to run it and record it here, or what?
That's fine. We can still run it on Wednesday. Or...
You want us to still happen? Yeah? Without me? That's fine. I can trust you. I trust you.
You won't have as much noise.
Oh, for sure. Oh, she's got all the answers. Yeah. Yeah, she's the head of this place. Yeah.
We'll miss her passion.
Maybe not. No. Now, Melissa's just told me because she wants to hear one more. So, what one? That's how you do telepathy. Tingabilly. Tingabilly was a farmer and he planted trees along his creeks and gullies and he pulled out weeds. As a lad, Billy's dad sent him off to school. He studied every day. Tingabilly was no fool. When he graduated ag college, he went home with a plan to lend a hand to his dad to regenerate the land. He planted fields of native yam between the forest stand, finger limes, gumby. Tinkerbilly's plan was grand. Tinkerbilly carried water from the creek to grow the trees. Summer sun had scorched the earth, brought drought and disease, a plague of feral pigs, led by the monster boar, ripped up roots by their seedlings by their roots, and dug the forest full. The yams were gone, the limes were gone, the gumby too, though Billy knew exactly what he had to do. Tinkerbilly got real mad, ran home, got his gun. He said, "Come on, Dad, the pigs are here. We're going to have some fun." The pigs bolted through the pumpkin fields. They pulled up in the truck, and Billy told his dad, "I'm going to fix this muck." He lifted up his rifle and he took a careful aim. Little did Tinkerbilly know of his approaching fame. The monster boar charged as Tinkerbilly pulled the trigger, but the rifle didn't fire and the ball grew bigger and bigger. He jumped up on the ute and he grabbed a rope, and Tinkerbilly knew that it was his only hope. He leapt and threw his rope and caught the mighty boar, and 200 kilos of mighty boar gave a mighty roar. He leapt upon its back and the boar took it in his stride and bolted off with Tinkerbilly across the countryside. Through the scrub bolted, but Tinkerbilly had a grip. The mighty boar took Billy on a mighty bush bash trip. Tinkerbilly's hope was to wear the mighty boar down. His grip grew tight as Tinkerbilly rode the boar into town. Through Darby's Creek, left Diamond Street, Opal, then to Ruby Street, and he'd still be going next week if Argy Dot hadn't heard him shriek. Rode fast past Wing Hinglong Museum, and a busload of tourists cheered to see. Went viral on a Facebook COVID Zoom stream. Made the whole world hysterically laugh and scream. And Tinkerbilly was just about to shoot to fame when Arnie Dot raised a rifle and took a careful aim. Squeezed the trigger and shot that mighty bull right up the arse. In Gilgai Road, the boar slowed, but didn't die fast. Tinkerbilly got halfway to Gilgai before that mighty bull finally collapsed to die. It jumped off the road to avoid a truck into Bluebeard's gully, where it finally got stuck. It was Tinkerbilly's very lucky day. He got down off that boar and he yelled, "Yippee-yi-yi, I got a monster boar for dinner." When things looked dire, Tinkerbilly looked down and picked up a huge sapphire. And when things looked dire, I landed in a ditch. I'll have roast pork for dinner, and this sapphire makes me rich. And that's the story of how Tinkerbilly shot to fame when he rode a monster boar 10 k's and he staked the mining claim. All right, well, thank you everyone for coming along tonight to the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. Donations are always welcome on the way out if you're so inclined. And it's wonderful to see you all here. Thank you for coming, Troy. Visitor, everyone, Ashley, Skye, Gabriel, Steve, Saul, and Larry, and Paul, wherever he's gone. The high plains and blow out. All right, thank you, and we'll see you during the week. Have a good evening.